Well, hello and welcome to another guest interview here on the Profit with Law podcast. I'm your host, Moshe Amsel, and I am recovering from a cold, so my voice is going to be a bit off for this recording and actually for the next few recordings because today's a podcast recording day. So bear with me as I work through this and try to continue to make magic for my beloved listeners. If this is your first time listening to the show, welcome. If you've been here for a while and haven't yet left us a rating or review in your podcast player, we would love it if you took the time to do that. It's really easy. They make it super simple for you to leave that rating and review, and it really helps other people learn and know about the show. Today, our guest is Luke Russell. Now, when I asked Luke, like, okay, what should I call you? What's your title? Because I normally say, oh, founder and CEO of this. Luke said, well, I actually don't like being tied to the company. I like being seen as an individual. And he said, what I normally tell people to use it or use in my bio is Luke's a friend and lover of humans. And I really love that. And that really gives you a glimpse into who we're about to have a conversation with. Luke is very colorful and he loves humans, which is awesome because that's everything that we do day in, day out. Everything that I do is to help people. Why? Because I love people. And everything that you guys do as lawyers is to help people. You wouldn't be in the profession that you're in if you don't like helping people get a win or get past a challenge. Even if that's not why you signed up for it, there's no way that you can stick to what you do, dealing with people day in and day out, dealing with their issues and their problems if you didn't love them. So we're in the right room, and I can't wait to get started with our conversation. Let me just read you the official intro here. Luke is an entrepreneur who's driven to go against the grain. When everyone says that this is the way it is done, he responds with, well, what if we tried something else? As a result, he is known for creative marketing approaches. Pair this with his strengths in forging human connection. He's able to help his clients cut through the marketing clutter and connect with their markets. Really excited to get into a conversation with him. But one thing in this intro that he said is, "What if you tried something else?" And I don't know if I'm quoting somebody or if this is just something I heard. Actually, it might be my business coach, but when you're faced with a dilemma, trying to choose between two options, always look for the third option, kind of along the lines of what Luke is sharing there. Or when others are zigging, you should be zagging, right? There is a certain power in going against the flow, against the grain. There's a certain power in doing things differently. As a matter of fact, a lot of what we do on this podcast is to talk about some of the alternate ways that you can be running your business that the standard mainstream legal community might not have adopted fully or might not be doing, but you can get ahead of the curve and do it differently and get a leg up, get a competitive advantage, or even just find another path to your success. Luke, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me on here.
It's my pleasure, and I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day to be with us. I like to start our interviews really easy because people want to know who is Luke Russell, right? And I haven't heard of him. Some of them might have, but for the ones who haven't, who don't know who you are, give us some of the backstrokes. How did you get involved with the legal community? What exactly do you do? And then we'll jump into our actual conversation.
All right. Yeah. So I think for me, so when I was in grade school, I really started honing my skills. And two of those skills that I wanted to use professionally to make money were writing and programming. And so at this point, I'm 33. I've been intentionally crafting my writing techniques for 20 years. And people, it might be like, what? But yes, at 13, it was like, what's my voice? What's my tone? What's my even stylistic, how I write? There's when I choose to honor rules versus break them. I love that. So already in my, budding self as a writer, I was immediately drawn to this idea of oh, interesting. The rules are this, but if you very intentionally break the norm, the writing can stand out. Or even just as simple as being given an assignment in class and I'd be like, well, I really want to write this. And so it'd be about how do I make what my assignment was be something I really want to create. And I think that's, and so then as I moved into, I went to business school for a year and realized almost nobody there had ever ran a business. And I was like, this is the wrong place for me. So at 18, I dropped out of business school and started my business. And I was doing one-page websites. So I was smiling because I love the intro, which I don't know if I wrote that a long time ago or what, but like there's the like when everybody goes this way, I go that way, and it's not always the best behavior, but it's been a through line every single thing. So I remember I guess I was 19 years old when I was just getting ready to start my business. I had a coach. We're sitting at lunch in some cafe, and he's encouraging me to do something with websites. I'm like, man, there's so many website companies, and this is before like Wix was big and all this stuff for the free tools. And I was like, I don't want to do something somebody else is already offering, especially if there's a lot of people offering. I can't handle it. I don't know. I don't want to. So I was like, I'm going to do one-page websites, because like there's like these people who like go to these networking events or this and that, and they need more than a business card. And what I learned quickly was people who only have business cards for their marketing and maybe just need a one-page website don't have any money to even pay for an inexpensive one-page website. And so I made a whole $800 that first year. And that set me down this path. And then I moved in. Then I hired another business coach. And in 2011, that business coach had another client named Ken Hardison, and of Pilma, and which I imagine some of your listeners are probably
know Ken very well.
Yep. So Ken has me come out speak to his mastermind. I'm 21 years old. I go out to wherever we are, like Myrtle Beach, I think, and I don't even know what a personal injury lawyer is. For all I know, all I've heard is they're ambulance chasers. So I'm out there talking about Facebook marketing and personal injury lawyers. And apparently, some different people heard me. I ended up working for a law firm for several years as a contracted director of marketing. But that Ken Hardison was who just kind of pulled me into the space because we had a shared consultant. And so, and from the very beginning, once I moved into the space, and this is where like, it feels so cheesy to be like, I don't like doing what everybody else does. But when I look back at my story, I see it's just been a constant. I can't, like, as soon as you're like, everybody does it this way, and I'm like, I don't care if it works. I just don't want to do it that way. And so for me, as I came into the marketing space, I was always coming up with different ideas. And I was told, Luke, you know how to talk about us in ways we don't. I immediately moved into this space and seeing this misunderstanding between the public perception and what's being done, and this like in the high mental health challenges within the space, from suicide, depression, anxiety, substance abuse, divorce, et cetera, all these challenges within this industry that are far higher than most. And so I fell in love with it. And so that's how we got here. I mean, and then what do I do today? I mean, I have an ad agency. We do social media advertising. I also have a couple of clients where I'm a community ambassador, where I help them build relationships with the queer community. I've run my own podcast for the last 2 years, and I've always got new projects coming around the corner.
What's the name of your show?
Lawful Good.
Lawful Good. Okay, we'll plug that here. Folks, go check out the podcast Lawful Good. It wasn't in the notes, so I wasn't aware of it. Would have included that in your intro. And I'm gonna also go check it out myself. Appreciate you doing that. It was really cool journey that you had, and really cool of Ken to kind of like pluck you out of the ethers and place you into this industry. In your journey working with lawyers, you highlighted some of the challenges that the industry faces from a mental health side of things, which causes all kinds of issues, which are real and true. Those are typically happening because of burnout, because of stress. When you're working with law firm owners, you probably are seeing that many of them are making it harder on themselves than they need to, right? They struggle with, I struggle with getting clients, or I struggle with keeping clients, or I struggle with getting my name out there. When you're looking at law firms and what the root cause of these issues are, what do you think is the biggest glaring problem that's solvable, that we can actually fix?
From a mental health standpoint?
So I'm making the connection or the assumption that the mental health issue is being caused by stress and burnout in the workplace, really, when we come down to mental health, it's what's the business problem that we need to solve.
Yeah. So, well, I don't. So there's been some different research done out there, ABA's published studies and whatnot. No one has a clear, like, here's where all the stress comes from. I think there's some interesting theories from different researchers that suggest even, and this is, I believe, ABA put these out around how the fact that, like, what your job as an attorney, what makes a great attorney, often leaves you a little more alone in your profession and whatnot. But I certainly don't want to ascribe where it comes from, but I do think this space has a lot of challenges, and especially for the contingency lawyers, there's that constant stress of, like, one, you're having to upfront everything to get somebody and then do all the work, and what if it doesn't pan out? What happens? And there's also one of the, I think the biggest frustrations I've heard from lawyers around the country is just the fact that, like, what works for one person may not work for the next 20. And so you go to these conferences and lawyers talk about, you need to be doing TikTok, or you need to be doing TV, or you need to be doing social, or you need to be whatever it is, there's this constant, hey, you need to be doing this. And then the frustrating part is they're like, okay, great. Let me go back to my business. Let me implement these strategies. And then it busts. And so then, like, I certainly don't want to be tying this to people's mental health outcomes, but from a frustration in the industry, there's so much, like, I've had so many lawyers, because they'll hire, like, I'll say, hey, you know what? I've had multiple clients use this vendor. They've had a great experience. And then several people will use them and not have a great experience. And there's so many reasons that can be, so many reasons. Sometimes it's literally just the strategy. You can replicate the exact same marketing. It doesn't necessarily work. You can have, and then what worked a year ago, when you go to these conferences, everybody's telling you what worked for them, but by the time you implement it, it might not work for you, or it might not work for your brand or your market or your personality. And so I think one of the big, and this is just like going back to Michael Gerber's E-Myth, like the entrepreneurial frustration of, like, most of these people signed up to be a lawyer. They didn't sign up to run a business. And then as part of that, running a business is doing marketing and making all these decisions. And they have no training, no genuine expertise. And I think there's some lawyers who really study this, and I would say they do. But I think there's a lot of these lawyers are suddenly found, like, they're having to manage budgets with vendors and hold them accountable. But, like, then what they really want to be doing is they want to be in the courtroom, or they want to be like hunting down, like, how are they going to get this next thing done? And so I think that's just a huge frustration in the space. And whenever people are like, what do I do? And they ask me, I'm like, I don't have an answer for you, other than I really encourage lawyers to make sure that however they're going to market themselves, do it in a way that at least feels good to you. Because if it doesn't feel good, if it doesn't feel good to you and it doesn't work, it's just frustrating. It's just like, man, I wasted my money. But at least if you like the marketing approach and it doesn't work, you're like, at least I stayed true to, like, how I want to run my business, my own values, because everything's not going to work. But that's just a challenge I've heard. And as a marketer, it's frustrating too, when I'll have, like, great case studies and we'll do really great work. And then, a firm will come out, bring me in, and then it doesn't pan out. And it's just a frustrating state to be in. As a marketer, it's frustrating for the lawyer. The fact that what we hear about at these events is everybody's great case studies, everybody what worked. We don't hear about the next dozen people who did the same thing and it didn't work. And so it kind of just feels like everybody's marketing is going great, but mine, when it's not. So that's a common theme I've seen and heard.
Yeah, so there's a number of questions that come up from what you just shared, and one is a question that I ask a lot here on the podcast when I have marketers on the show. You know, as you indicated, our law firm owners are always stuck in this realm of, I don't know which form of marketing to use, right? Like, should I be doing SEO? Should I be doing PPC? Should I be doing Facebook ads? Should I be doing focusing on organic social? Should I be doing TikTok? All those questions. And you alluded to the fact that the answer is not the same from one firm to the next. And the answer is not the same from one industry to the next, or one practice area to the next. So how is a law firm owner supposed to navigate this? How is there some sort of secret sauce or criteria that they can use to kind of figure out, what is the thing or the pecking order that I should try things? Because clearly I need to try it before I say, no, this doesn't work for me. What is that order, or how do I determine where to start?
Boy. So I want to think about, like, for your listeners, is who's talking right now. It's Luke, who loves to do things against the grain. So what I'm going to tell you is going to be totally different from so many of my friends. And part of it too is I I run a business because I don't want to work for somebody else. I run a business because I like it. The problems are interesting. I like having all that creative freedom. And so, like, for me, that comes into it. But for me, my business is very much an expression of myself, an expression of my values and the impact I want to have in the world. And so with that, I don't want to do any marketing that doesn't feel good. And I've done this in the past where, like, I hire this company or that vendor or whatever, and it just doesn't feel good. And then if it doesn't work, I'm like, man, I don't ever want to do that again for me. And so that's, like, for some lawyers, I hear so many people who are like, I don't want to be that TV lawyer who's got, doing their cheesy things or whatever. I don't want to be on the billboard person. I want to be, like, I just want to help people. And I'm like, so, okay, like, do you do SEO? Do you do this? Well, one, I'm very much anti TikTok for lawyers, not because no one can make it work, but the thing is, some of the lawyers who did this early got ahead, and it's now for the lawyers jumping in now, you're just one in a million. You're just one more person doing something. It's generic. It looks, but so I'd like, for the people who feel like, oh my gosh, am I supposed to be doing TikTok? No, ignore it. Unless you really want to. And that's where I really want to encourage people. If you're doing marketing that you really enjoy, then your heart's going to be in a little more. Your personality is going to shine through. Some clients are going to be more attracted to you, and at least you're going to enjoy the process. Will it work? Maybe, maybe not. You have the world's brightest minds for all different kinds of companies, and things don't work. And so I think it's really important for lawyers to recognize, like, marketing never always works. It never does. Nobody has a magic green thumb when it comes to their marketing to make every venture work. When you look at and you see these firms where things are thriving for them, some of it's just simple luck, that the things they tried at the time they tried was the perfect timing. And it's not to degrade these brilliant lawyers who were the ones who took that risk and were like the people who were early in TV or the people who were early in this or that. It's not that they aren't brilliant. It's just that they were trying so many things. How did they know that was going to be what worked? I don't think most of the people I've talked to didn't wake up and go, you know what? I want to take all my savings. I'm going to invest in this commercial, and I know it's going to work. Instead, they go, I hope it does, but I believe it's right for me. And so they do it. And so then when they're thriving, can you just go replicate what they did? You can try, but it never fits the same when it's not your style. So I really encourage lawyers to consider what can work for them. But then I will say, the one thing I would recommend to any lawyer, and this is, I have nothing to sell anybody today. And definitely what I'm about to talk about, I don't do, is YouTube. Here's what's so amusing to me about the craze for suddenly hiring videographers for social media is if people really wanted to make money on video, they should have been listening 10, 15 years ago when my friends were talking about YouTube. People like Jerry Oginski out of New York, I think maybe Long Island. And Jerry, he was one of those people. He was on YouTube in 2006, getting massive cases off of YouTube. And you can still do that off of YouTube, but, like, YouTube's such it's such a sound strategy. But here's the thing is, it takes a lot of work, takes a lot of time. I mean, I highly recommend. I have a YouTube coach who's helping me. We're building out something really cool and exciting. But, like, when I've started studying YouTube over the last year and seeing all these different people, I have a friend who built up a YouTube channel for a law firm. And this YouTube channel is paying 5 figures back after paying for their staff to run this YouTube channel. It gets cases, and then it pays the law firm back after all of that. So it's not, what other marketing is there for lawyers that can actually get cases and then also itself be a profit source? There's not many out there. So, like, for me, when I listen to these, over the last years, I've watched this videographer craze take place. I'm just like, well, fine, do social media if you want to. I think it's a little more ego stroking. I don't mean that's bad. It's just, I think TikTok, all of a sudden lawyers are excited about TikTok because it's videos of themselves. But when they and they're kind of playful and different and this and that, and you get all these views, but on YouTube, 100 views can be a case. Who cares if you have 1 million views on TikTok? I don't care. I have friends with 8-figure views on TikTok and don't have $1 tied to it. But my friends doing YouTube can have 1,000 subscribers and $2 million. So for me as a marketer who doesn't even do that and offer that as a service, I'm amazed at how the lawyers keep focusing on shiny things that are new and like, oh, these people are doing it, so I need to do it. And I'm like, well, what if you took something that just feels good to you? And I like YouTube. But as if you couldn't tell. But anyways, so there's I feel like I kind of went a few different directions in that for you.
No, I appreciate the rant, because really, if we pick through what you said and we look at the the crux of the issue, it's you need to keep trying different things until you find the thing that works. And the other thing that I was seeing or hearing or observing with what you were sharing is you need to be willing to invest at a level that people are not really thinking about when they're, like when they're looking at a marketing strategy, they're thinking about, okay, can I do this? How much can I put towards it? I have a client right now that, she's venturing into pay-per-click, right? And worked with a vendor with a budget of $2,000 a month. And when we sat down and looked at, okay, what do you want to get out of this? Like, how many clients a month do you need in order to reach your business goals? And then she went and vetted 3 new providers to run pay-per-click for her and said, okay, what does my budget need to be to bring in this many leads to result in this many clients per month? And the budget she needed to allocate was somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000 a month. So sometimes we're trying something, but we're not even actually doing it at the level that's going to create the success that we need to be able to know it's working. Like you gave YouTube as an example. People say, okay, I'm going to do YouTube, I'm going to launch a channel, and then they put out 1 video a week and expect it to work. But no, you got to realize where YouTube's at. YouTube's pushing shorts. Like, you got to start putting out shorts every day if you want to succeed on YouTube organically. Or you can buy into the market and have YouTube ads running. You gave the example of TV and billboard. I had somebody here on the podcast. I don't remember who it was or what the episode was, but my team will go and find it for you, where he made his leap from successful to largely successful by heavily investing in TV ads. And what he did is actually he went to his parents and borrowed their retirement fund basically to get started. And I asked him, I said, were you afraid of, putting your parents' retirement on the line, going into this? And he said, no, I tested it first. I got some results that I felt really good about. So I just needed to amplify it. I just needed to increase it. And the truth is that when you say, so people try something, they say it doesn't work. Every form of marketing works. It's a matter of finding the right audience and the right message for that audience, which requires a lot of testing and tweaking, which is why social media is such a great place to advertise, because you can change your message weekly to test different things and get different results. But if you're trying TV ads or billboards, you can't just keep changing them. Or if you do, there's a time lag, right? Like you can't change the commercial that's running on TV overnight. You need to re-record your stuff, send it to them. They need to queue it up. It's probably a few month process to get that changed. Billboards, probably even longer. You got to get somebody to climb up there and change the billboard for you. And so it could be costly, and it's not something that you can just change at the spur of the moment, which is why, you probably want to start with getting clear on what's going to catch your people's attention, what's going to get results in a place where, for a much lower investment, you can make tweaks and changes. But then it's, like Luke said, it's what feels good to you. That's where you should be trying first. But I do think that people might abandon or give up too quickly when they're trying something because they say, oh, it doesn't work, instead of, like you said, in the intro that we read for you, what if you try something different, right? So I think that there's a lot of tweaking and testing required when it comes to marketing. Same thing with vendor selection, right? If that vendor's not getting you results, try another vendor instead of saying that the medium doesn't work. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100% agree with that, like, idea that, like, just the medium doesn't necessarily work just because that vendor didn't. I mean, look at SEO. I mean, you'll have one vendor work great in one market and then somebody else uses them in a different market and it doesn't go as great. But yet, obviously, people are getting cases through SEO. So it's obviously works if you're ranking, but how do you rank, and what are the strategies that market needs? And so I see lawyers start marketing and then they seem to be, like, my observations is it's very quick to pull the plug on something that they aren't sure is working. Now, I'm not saying it's not a good decision, because I probably saved them from, like, going too far down some paths that maybe we're just going to be money sinks. But I also think then you stop things that are going to end up turning around that there's no patience for. I mean, I've had so many, especially in the mass toward advertising space, campaigns that don't start well. And if my clients I mean, I'd have people pull the plug so early, and I'm like, you wasted everyone's time, including your own, by pulling the plug early. Like, just don't hire me. So we started putting all kinds of minimums and stuff, because it was, if we have the runway, it doesn't mean we get it every time, but we're able to show, like, oh man, here's how we're pivoting. And we've had things that start off at, and we had a campaign that I think was around $5,000 a case. It needed to be at 1,500, and we kept tweaking it and tweaking it and tweaking it. And we got it down to, at the very end, we were spending $30,000 a day, generating $900 cases. So, like, but because that client was, like, willing to trust us to keep iterating and iterating and iterating, we weren't spending $30,000 a day when we were getting $5,000 cases. We're spending $1,000 a day, and then it was increasing. And so I think there is that aspect. And I invite lawyers to consider this idea that, like, most marketing fails, most businesses fail. That can be depressing sounding, or it can be freeing. To be like, look, if almost everybody who starts a law firm, if almost everybody who tries something with their marketing, if it's gonna fail, now it just becomes, for you, like, try stuff and then look for the things that do. It's not about, oh my gosh, I hope this doesn't fail. It probably will. Like, let's face it, whatever you do is probably gonna fail. So figure out what you want to have a shot at working. Go, like, because if you're like, oh, I don't want to be a TV lawyer, don't go spend money on TV. But if, like, man, I'd like to put some money in TV, let's try that. Let's try this over here. You know what? I want to try, a strategy with social, or I want to go down this TikTok path and see if we can make that work. Whatever it is, just, it's going to fail. So then have fun in the process, and then some things will work. But I think there's maybe a bit of a perfectionistic trait with this idea that, like, I got to make sure every marketing works. No, you need to be diligent. Absolutely, because you need to have your starts and stops in place. So you go, hey, we're going to go to this point, and this is how we reevaluate. And 100% evaluating your vendors also on a, like, pre-planned way is helpful for everybody, because when you just go pop out of the ground suddenly and go, surprise, we're done. It's like, your vendor might actually have had some really good things in the pipeline, or be able to be like, hey, look at this data, versus if we say, hey, at the 30 days, here's how we're going to evaluate it, the 60 days, or the 6 month, whatever things, having that pre-planned measurement and how you're going to assess, and having your vendor on the same page, I think that just makes for a really good relationship. And it's a little bit of a side note on that, but I think it's just, go out, try stuff, recognize it's probably going to fail. So have fun trying it, and something will most likely work eventually.
Yeah, and I think that there's also, back to this idea of doing things differently, zigging when other people are zagging, finding the solution that's not being discussed. Another, like, I had a client who said, hey, look, I'm anti-social media. I don't spend time on social media. Like, I just I don't want to do social media personally. But at the same time, I recognize that there's a huge market and a huge potential in getting involved in social media. And, you would say, okay, like, if I look at somebody like that, okay, don't do social media and just give up on that potential and find another place to build your business. But I would challenge somebody like that to say, what are other ways that you can do social media where it's not you doing social media, right? And that's really the thing that we don't think about, is, like, you don't look at this TV. You keep going back to TV as an example. I'm going to use TV as an example too. I look at TV ads for lawyers that are running locally on my TV network, and it's always the owner on camera. Now, maybe there's research and testing done to prove that that's more effective. But I can tell you that 90% of them suck, right? Like the ads just are awful. Hire some actors or actresses and put together a good commercial, that's gonna really convey your message of why somebody should use your law firm. They don't care if it's you on the camera or not. They're not. A lot of times people say, oh, they're coming for me. When they're coming from a TV commercial, they're not coming for you. They're coming for the solution to their problem. When they're coming for you, it's because a friend referred them. That's the only time that they're coming for you specifically, right? So if you want them to reach out to you and to respond to an ad that you're running, make it about them, make it about their problem, which means that it doesn't need to be you. So if you don't like social media, great, that's no problem. Hire a social media manager, hire some actresses to be in your video commercials, video ads that you're running on social media, and run it that way. Like all you need to do is come up with the strategy or the idea of which way you want to run, and then you can do whatever you want. But you can have social media as a core pillar of marketing in your law firm and never be on social media yourself personally. And that's the thing, like when it comes to any form of marketing, always think about like, how can I do this without my involvement if it's something I don't want to be involved in? Sometimes when we're involved in it, we actually get worse results because we're the thing that's slowing it down, right? Like if I wake up and I have a full plate, well, I'm not posting on social today. So now we deviated from our plan because I didn't have time. So having yourself be the person actually could be to your detriment, not to your help.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Luke. So as we come into the home stretch, we're gonna end the interview here shortly. I like to leave off with two things. One is let's share how people can get in touch with you or work with you or learn more about you. What's the next step for them if they enjoyed our conversation? And then the second thing is what is one, if you can leave like one parting piece of advice, piece of wisdom for our audience, around the topic we spoke about, or just in general, whatever you want to share, what would that be?
Yeah, so people can find me on some social media channels because I refuse to be on some. Just find me at Luke W Russell. It's Russell. You can email me. I mean, find me, but just go find me on social. Connect with me on social. If you want to, you can email me at luke@russellmedia.us as well. And so final parting thought, one of the things that I see, almost everybody's social media is generic. And I think most law firms could just cut that out of their entire thinking because they don't, it's if it looks generic and you're talking about accidents and injuries and you're a PI lawyer, or in particular, I'm speaking to the PI lawyers there, you're probably completely tone deaf and boring to your audience. And because I see these lawyers posting about, 5 tips after an accident. That's a great ad. That's not great for your social. We've seen it a million times. Stop. Now, if you want to use social in a way that really can change the game, is one, there's so many strategies. I know I'm a little bit like, I'm so over law firms' social media because it's boring for the most part. Now, if somebody wants to see somebody there's some people who do some really good social media work. People like Jen Cuthbert Gore out of Atlanta, Bighorn Law out of Las Vegas. There's some people who do some really good stuff. But here's a totally different way to think about social media. Forget thinking of social media as a platform to be trying to get the most views. Consider social media as a tool for building, wait for it, relationships. And relationships are where, so I have multiple clients who would say like, every single one of my biggest cases came from a relationship. Not from a TV, not from billboard, not from their SEO. It came because someone said, man, this tragedy just happened. I don't know what to do. And they're sitting in a living room and somebody says, call this law firm. That's how you get most of the biggest cases, is relationships. And so how can you use social media to do that? Go out and build relationships, feature people on your social media, talk about other people while showcasing your values. If you're about helping people, whatever it is. If it's about, maybe if you're, a family lawyer, go out and feature people who are doing, it could be families, you could be featuring businesses who serve families, or people who just community things. If you're like if you're, let's just say you're in, I don't know, Nebraska, and you're, or wherever, and you say, let's go out and feature other people. I've seen a handful of law firms do this. And what it does is suddenly now you're spending your marketing time, your social media time talking about somebody else, which, especially on the PI lawyers, your reputation's so terrible. As soon as you open your mouth and say accident, it's just like walls go up. People are so tired of it now. But when you go out and you say, hey, here's this really beautiful human in our city who's doing these cool things, suddenly now you're building a relationship with that person, and start cultivating that goodwill. Now you're going to have to cultivate that relationship too over time by showing up but like a relationship strategy using social media as a means to just fuel that. That's just what I invite people to consider. I'm doing it in a few different states. It's really cool. The way people respond it's relationship building. And that's when it becomes authentic rather than a channel to try to get attention. It becomes about amplifying other people's voices. You'll stand out because 99% of people are probably never going to be even willing to consider such a strategy.
Yeah, I love that. And that's what we do here, right? I mean, we have guests here on the podcast. We run the Law Firm Growth Summit, where we highlight 30 plus experts on stage, at our events. It's all about bringing together other people, other expertise, other case studies for our audience to experience, and all the while developing a relationship with me, developing a relationship with our brand,
exactly,
with law firm, and the Law Firm Growth Summit. So I love that. The one thing that we really need to understand when it comes to nuggets like that, and somebody just heard that and a light bulb went on, and they said, "Wow, I've been doing it all wrong. I need to change my strategy." One of the things we mentioned earlier in the show, and I'm just going to reiterate it here to just highlight, like put a pin in the final thing, that Luke is sharing with you, is it takes time, right? Time is the thing that we don't really talk about. It's not very expensive to highlight other people, right? It's, like you can do it and you can create internal processes. You don't even need, an outside company to manage that for you. You can do it all internally, but it's going to take time for those relationships to blossom, for those relationships to create fruit for you. When you're planting the seed today with one relationship or one person you're interviewing or one, family you're highlighting or whatever it is that you're doing, that will probably pay dividends maybe 18 months later. It could happen faster, but usually, like, there needs to be that opportunity where all of a sudden somebody's in a room and says, "Oh, wait a second, how about this law firm? They highlighted so and so, or we know them, or whatever it is." So each one of those will pay dividends down the road. So you need to continue. It's almost like a planter, right? If a farmer walks into his field and says, "Okay, I know that I'm going to plant seeds, I'm going to plant wheat, and it's going to take I have no idea how long it takes. So it's going to take 3 months for the wheat to grow, right? So I'm going to plant a seed here, and then I'm going to wait 3 months for it to grow. And when I see that it grows, then I'm going to plant the next seed." And that's what we do when it comes to our marketing, when it comes to, especially to social media, is like, we'll do a little bit and then we're like, "Oh, it's not doing anything, so I'm just going to stop." And then all of a sudden, 6 months later, you get a lead from that work you did before. You're like, "Oh, wow, it worked. I should do it again." So you need to trust the process. You need to believe in the fact that by doing this, it's going to eventually pay dividends, and just stick to it. The podcast we launched in March of 2019, it wasn't a hit on day one. I mean, we had 20 downloads in the first month. Now we get over 1,000 downloads per episode in a micro industry, right? Just targeting law firms, which is huge. And it took 4 years of sticking to putting out an episode every single week, sometimes more than that, to get here, because of a trust and a belief in the medium, a belief in just, if I stay here and I continue consistently, that it will happen for us. So if you want immediate results, You're not going to get it by developing relationships. But we all know deep down that most of the quality clients come that way. And it needs to be a fabric of what we're doing throughout whatever else we're doing. So if you want quick results, yeah, go put some money behind some paid advertising campaign, whatever, however that looks. But at the same time, lay these seeds at the same, while you're doing that, so that eventually you have this machine of constant clients coming in on their own through these relationships that you've built. Luke, this has been a great conversation. Really appreciate you being here. Folks, if this interview provided value to you, normally I close out and ask you to subscribe, but I'm going to ask you for something else. And that is, take a link to this episode and text it to a friend. Somebody, another law firm owner who perhaps is struggling when it comes to their marketing, when it comes to their client attainment, and they just need a new way of looking at things. They need to get that new perspective. And I think this was one of those conversations that really introduced looking at things a little bit differently than the mainstream, marketers are doing. And I invite you to just take this and share it with them, because you can make a huge difference in what they do in growing their business. And that pays dividends too over time. And you don't do things just because it pays dividends, right? It's going to help somebody else. And ultimately, that's what we want to do, is we want to help others. So appreciate you sharing this out. And we're here every Thursday with another amazing guest interview. So stay tuned to the podcast, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you next week. Take care.